and welcome back to Bengali Girl. This is your podcast host Nikita, and I'm so grateful that you're here. Before we begin with the podcast episode and everything that follows, I have to give you guys a few updates. Now, this is beyond my imagination. I did not expect these numbers. I got an email saying that we are nearing almost 650 downloads on our episodes for this podcast, Bengali Girl, which is, again, beyond my imagination. When I started this, I thought a few people like me, my husband, and a few friends that I would force, download this episode. But again, we are still ranking in the top 250 podcasts in the UAE. So I'm really glad where I grew up, they're still supporting me. So that's great. And I'm mumbling right now because I have had a cup of coffee and I am caffeine sensitive. So a lot of my words might seem too much, but excuse me because I am very excited that I've finally got some time to record an episode out and just voice my opinion. I believe the only way and the only right way to make a comeback is with the second episode for Wannabe Bhoot FM. And that's because that is not only one of the most popular episode downloads that I've noticed, but also a lot of my friends highly requested this. So I think this is for them because not only have they supported me in, listening, giving me feedback, but they're really excited to be part of this podcast as well. So this is for you guys. So thank you so much to my friends and people who are listening for downloading again. I know I'm being too cheesy by saying thanks too much, but I think it's just my comeback, guys. Okay, all right, that means you need to now grab some tea, grab some snacks or some popcorn, or just tune in when you're driving, hopefully not on a lonely road. But this is going to be quite an extensive episode because I'm not going to only talk about my stories. I'm also going to talk about some of the research I did when trying to understand why this is happening or what this is happening. People who know me know that I'm very sensitive to energy. So if you are not a believer of such, like, energy or manifestation and stuff like that, I would say please don't listen. You'll probably cringe. But if you are, and if you're interested to learn more, stay tuned, I guess. Now let's begin from the childhood. And as I mentioned in the previous episode, I was protected a lot from these energies, from these stories as a child because my parents, my relatives, my siblings, they didn't want to scare me and they didn't want me to live in fear because these were some of the places that we were living in. So if I was scared, I would make their lives hell and I would make them, cry every night or eventually make them move, which is why I think they didn't tell me a lot of those stories. But as I grew up, I think they realized that, yeah, I can tell, Nikita. Also, we moved away from those places, so I think it was safe to talk about them without the worry of, anyone listening in. The first time I spoke to anyone about my experience was my mom, and it was after I moved to Australia. So I'm talking about 2018 or 2019. I was a student at the University of Wollongong and staying with a family in Wollongong itself. And in my room, there wasn't much, right? So there was a bed, a table, and attached wardrobe. So basic student amenities, right? And what happened was, it was during the day. I was all by myself. The family that I was living with, like the parents were working and the daughter was working as well, so they were not at home. I was just in my bed trying to take a nap. I was reading a book to help me fall asleep when I felt the space near my feet sink. It felt like someone had just sat down, and instantly my senses were heightened because I did not hear anyone enter the room, and also I was aware that no one was home, and the door of my room was locked, the house was locked, And that's when I remembered my maternal grandma speaking to my mom when they thought I was asleep as a child, that if you ever feel a presence, listen to your gut. So if it feels like you should avoid it, then avoid it at all costs. But if you feel like there's a friendly presence, you can do whatever you want. Like you can talk and you can share. But for some reason, that presence that I felt near my feet that day did not feel good. I ignored it and I kept on reading my book. But around like 2 minutes had passed when I was getting worried about what was happening, because I could still feel that space being sunk near my feet. And so what I did was I very calmly took my phone, because my grandma's words were coming into my mind. So I took my phone and I just called my mom on WhatsApp. I told her on that call that I feel like someone is sitting near my feet. And she told me to recite Ayatul Kursi and the 3 Kul surahs and to clap 3 times loudly. But she warned me to do it very calmly, like not to seem too bothered, with this presence, and to like act like this is something that I do. Now talking about it now, it still makes me tensed. So back then I told her to stay on the phone while I recite, and I did all that while I was still in that same position that I was in when I was reading my book, because I felt like I couldn't move. And I have anxiety and I get my panic attacks and everything, but I didn't feel anything like that. It surely felt like someone was sitting near my feet. So once I finished, I could still feel that presence, but my mom reassured me that it's okay. And after a while, I think it was 10-15 minutes, because I was just on the phone with her, talking to her about like everything else, like how my classes were, who my friends are and stuff like that. After a while, I felt it leave, because the space in the bed came up where it sunk. First of all, what freaked me out was how calm my mom was, as if this was something that, she did on the regular. And the second was, this was something that directly happened to me, and not like something that I heard or experienced happening to someone else. Like, in the past episode, I was talking about the experience that I had with my sister. So it was surreal, and definitely something that made me a lot more curious about these type of energies, jinns, bhoots, and all of that. Now, people who live in Australia know about Picton and the Picton Tunnel. And for those who don't know, it is a town southwest of Sydney and is considered Australia's most haunted town. There were ghost tours from the late 90s till 2011, when it was shut down due to like council restrictions. The Picton Tunnel, or the actual name of it, is the Red Bank Range Tunnel, is around 592 feet in length and is carved into the hills of the Picton region. Trains to and from Melbourne went through this tunnel. It's considered haunted because of the high number of suicides and deaths which took place on that train line. So witnesses have reportedly seen lights, gusts of winds, and shadows. But there are also rumors of the ghost of a girl who had been assaulted and murdered, but she is seen rarely, and the ghost of a girl who hung herself at the entrance of the tunnel. Now, a group of my friends and I decided one night to go and explore. To find that tunnel on Google Maps is hard, because they usually take you to the Mushroom Tunnel, which is a glow, it glows in the dark and stuff, but not to the Red Bank Range Tunnel. Not sure why or if that is true, but when we tried to find it on Google Maps back then, we couldn't. But we still went to Picton, because if it is haunted, if it's a haunted town, then of course there will be things that we could experience. So because we couldn't find the tunnel, what we did is we went to the Picton graveyard. Now, it does not matter if it is a haunted town or a normal town. If you go to a graveyard, you would obviously be spooked. So my friends and I, we tried to put on a brave face and we got out of the car. We walked around, and interestingly, there was a small playground area near the graveyard, which was weird. The playground had swings and merry-go-round, and I don't remember if it had anything else. And all of us, were joking around, trying to scare each other by saying, hey, we saw something move, or we could hear something and blah, blah, blah. But then we eventually left, I think after 10-15 minutes, because there wasn't anything that we experienced there. And we were driving around a bit defeated because we couldn't find the tunnel. We couldn't really see anything for ourselves, And it was a trip. It was a late night trip. So when we were driving around, we found this hotel that looked abandoned. We didn't know the history of this hotel because it didn't come up on our quick 30-second Google search on Picton. But we were like, okay, we can park our car here because the hotel was opposite of a vet hospital. So we stopped there to look at it. The name of the hotel was Imperial. Now, as I said, I am sensitive to energy, where I can sense people's moods or the atmosphere of a room, if it's tense or people are relaxed, etc. I can sense that. But when it comes to superstitious stuff or even paranormal stuff, I am also sensitive to feeling those presence. Maybe I made myself this way, or it just comes with the family DNA, but this is what I feel. But have also been told by Hoojers and psychics that, yep, you are sensitive. So as we approached the stairs of this hotel, I felt this weird energy. First of all, I suddenly felt cold, even though I had warm clothes on. Since it was in the middle of winter, I sensed a change in temperature at the stairs. So the stairs leading up to the hotel. So that's where I felt this weird energy. I quickly told my friends that, they can go ahead if they want, but I don't feel good about this place. So 2 or 3 of my friends went in and the rest stayed with me because we all were shit scared. As they were exploring, I kept checking my surroundings since I felt uneasy. So I looked up at the second floor of the hotel and I saw a shadow and a curtain move. So my grandma's voice immediately came in my head, I need to act like I didn't see it because my gut told me that it might not be friendly. So I did tell a few of my friends that I saw this, and we tried to look up and see if we could notice anything else, but we didn't really see anything after. So my friends, when they came back from exploring the hotel, I don't think they went that far. They also reportedly felt cold in the hotel compared to when they were outside, and this was in the middle of winter, so it was June or July. So all of us got spooked out. And we left, and when we came back home, I tried looking up that hotel, and turns out it was haunted. And one of the sightings reported was people witnessing movement in the windows, curtains moving, and stuff like that. I think these experiences were a one-off situation, which is definitely what I prefer, as long as, these energies don't attach to me or I don't bring it home. But let me talk about an experience that really shook me, and it still feels like it was out of a movie. It was in Bangladesh when I was visiting for my summer holidays. So I was in Dhaka living at my Boro Khala's place, my aunt's place, in the cantonment area. My maternal grandma had lost movement in her legs, but she was just unwell due to the strong medications. So she also came to visit my aunt's house to have some checkups done at the CMH. Now, my Boro Khala's place had 3 bedrooms. And because, we were so many cousins, my grandma, during that time, my Boro Khala and my mom decided to go to Kumilla to sort out some of the issues of their family home there. So my other aunt, my Choto Khala, came to stay with us. So it was me, my sister, my cousin brother, my Choto Khala, and my grandma in the house. My aunt and I So my Choto Khala and I were sleeping in one room, and my sister, cousin, and grandma were in the other room. And that night is definitely a night that I don't remember clearly because it was so murky. And you'll hear why. Because there was so many people experiencing the same thing, we were able to piece together the incidents that happened or transpired. But let's go with my POV from the beginning, and then we'll talk about what we know now. We had all gone to sleep in our respective rooms. So my Choto Khala and I in one room, my cousin, sister, and my grandma in the other room. Around 2 a.m.-ish, I was suddenly woken up by my sister, who came rushing into the room to grab me. And that's when I realized that my aunt was not in the room and I was just sleeping alone. My sister was very scared and she kept screaming my name to wake me up. She literally carried me to the other room where everyone was because I was still waking up. And as I mentioned earlier that, they always try to protect me from all of this because I was the youngest in the fam as well. But they all seemed scared, and I saw my grandma sitting upright on the bed with a shawl wrapped around her head like mathay ghumta dawa, and she was reciting something. My aunt was sitting beside her, and my sister and cousin were telling me to just go back to sleep. But I could sense that they were scared because my sister was literally trying to pat me back to sleep. But suddenly my sister and my cousin screamed together while looking at the door, and I turned and I saw nothing there. And that's when my grandma started pointing at something in front of her, and my aunt was just trying to calm her down. My sister and cousin were close to me, and they were kind of in front of my face, just covering my eyes in a way, or trying to shield me from whatever was happening. So let's speak about what happened. All of us were asleep, right? When my grandma suddenly woke up and she grabbed her shawl and she started reciting Surah Yasin. My grandma was a religious-minded person, but we all know that the Yasin Surah is a lengthy one. And we knew as a family, none of us had it memorized because definitely it gives you bragging rights, right? But my grandma didn't know it by heart, but she was reciting it as if she learned it all in a minute or so. My sister and my cousin were woken up by this, and they were scared to see her awake and sat upright on the bed all by herself because my grandma needed assistance for movement. So what my cousin did is he went and he woke my Choto Khala up and made sure not to wake me up. My aunt then came to the room and she was also taken aback by my grandma. My grandma's voice just sounded scared, and she kept looking up to an empty void in front of her as if someone was standing there. And my sister got worried about me in the other room because I was alone, so she quickly ran to grab me. And so once she brought me to the room and made me lie down beside her, my grandma started pointing at something again in front of her, and in the middle of her recitation of the surah, she's like, "Not now, ekhon na." That's what she kept saying, and then she went back to reciting, and then she would stop and she would say ekhon na, Jola Jao, leave and stuff like that. My sister and my cousin then screamed at the bedroom door, which was open to the living area, and you could see the living area from the bedroom, because they saw a black cat just walk past the door frame. And we don't have cats, and our neighbors don't have cats. We all know and we're told by superstitious people that black cats are ominous for various reasons, and I think that's what scared them. But it was so fast and they both noticed it together. However, when I looked within I didn't see anything. So my Choto Khala then got up and she went to check if a cat had just, come in from the window or were the windows open, but there was nothing of that sort. So nothing was open. All the windows were closed shut because we would turn the AC on. So everything had to be shut to get the cool air in the room more and stuff, typical Bengali household things. And yeah, that like, I don't remember much because, as I said, I was already sleepy. I was awake, like, because my sister woke me up, and I remember being scared, and then my sister just held me and we all tried to like go back to sleep because my aunt was like, it's okay, let her just do it, and it'll be fine, there's nothing wrong, she's reciting a surah, so there's literally nothing that could harm us because she's doing it for the well-being of us. And that was kind of like a shantana for us, and we're like, okay, fine, we can go back to sleep. The following days, as a typical Bengali family goes, we did not speak about what happened till my grandma insisted to have our family hujur come over. To say family is not right, because this hujur was only someone that my grandma relied on heavily, when it comes to anything superstitious and jinns and stuff. So she insisted to have that hujur come over, although he didn't want to say what was the reason or what happened, but he gave us a set of plates with dua written on it with some sort of jam-like consistency, and we were told that every day we're supposed to melt that jam with a bit of water and feed it to our grandma. And I know it sounds ridiculous, but anyone who's had any experience with all this would know how these are just normal stuff. And as a family, thinking about it, we were also divided on this. Some of us didn't believe in these things, especially like what's a jam dua got to do with it, So these are the few things that the kids, including my mom and I, like the cousins and my mom and I, and some did not believe. However, some did, but we all knew, regardless of our opinions, that our grandma was an avid believer of pretty much everything that the hujur said. And I don't know how much that set of plates with dua written on it with some sort of jam-like consistency helped, because my grandma unfortunately slipped into coma a few weeks after the incident and passed away. And there is nothing that we could do. I don't think those set of plates could save her. However, that's the kind of blind belief that people have in these things, and you can't really say anything, to your elders, I suppose. But talking about all this, you have to also acknowledge the fact that black magic is so prevalent in our society, let it be Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, South Asian or Southeast Asian countries. Black magic is so prominent and was so normalized. I remember in Kumila there was this channel where you could call the person up and tell him what movie you want to watch. So he would play the movie for you, and he would run these ads, of course, to sustain his business, right? So he would run these ads where they would be like, oh, you want this person to fall in love with you, so use this soap, or like you can use the sugar to like let people or have people listen to what you want and stuff like that, It was just so normalized, and as a kid I didn't understand that it was black magic. But now growing up, you realize, or based on my research, you realize that doing these things or involving yourself with black magic comes at a cost. We as a family know of this woman who does a black magic on pretty much everyone and anyone she wants to, freely, because she's a sad of a person who would rather take away everyone else's happiness and still stay upset and sad. So as a growing up, my mom would be like, whenever we go to her house, she would tell us not to eat at her place or even to drink water at her place, because you never know what's happening. And unfortunately, how we found out that she's doing black magic is the person that she went to do or like request the black magic to be done on our family, that person called us up for exchange of money, of course, that he wouldn't do it, but he called us up to tell us. And it's weird, right? It's so weird. Sorry, I just lost my train of thought there because it's something that is too personal that I'm sharing up here. And when I'm talking, like as I'm telling you the stories, it's coming into my mind that if I should be talking about it. But regardless, I've chosen to go ahead with this episode, so I should be transparent and raw about all of my experiences. And that's completely fine. But I think it's been 25 minutes that I've been sharing my stories and experiences, and I know you all appreciate these kind of episodes a lot, and I'll try to do them a lot more because, of course, as I said, this is 3 generations of my family that have been experiencing these things. So it's not going to be something that's very light or like just done with 1 or 2 episodes. However, I'm going to have a few of my friends come on to the podcast as well to talk about their experiences and their stories. So stay tuned for that. And I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did while recording this. So thank you so much for tuning in. And I will talk to you in the next episode. Thank you. Bye.